Hey, welcome to Studio Wildlife. My name's Daniel and I'm an artist. In today's video, I'm going to show you my process for painting big acrylic paintings. Not this one, its bigger older brother. It's a little bit cluttered in my studio today because I've got three big paintings on the go at the same time. There's this one, and this one. I'm really excited about this commission. I've been asked to create three big jaguar pieces, very similar to this piece here, which was a practice piece for these three. Now, we're going to upscale it and go bigger. It doesn't matter what canvas I'm using, I always like to give every single canvas a fresh coat of gesso. It just helps the acrylic paint soak better into that surface and results in an overall better quality painting. I learned a lot doing the study, and one of those things that I learned was how boring it is painting all of those spots. So with a little bit of studio magic, we're gonna do this. Wow, look at that, magic! And now we can actually get on to the fun part of the painting process. The first thing with big paintings is you need a big brush. This is a size 50 flat that I'm going to use for the vast majority of this background. I'm turning 30 this year, and one of my goals is to get a little bit fitter. So I've been going to the gym, which is great. I've been feeling great, but it is making it hard work to paint such big pictures. I am so sore. Anyway, I've got to let this dry, and then I'm going to start working over the top of it with a little bit more detail. For the background of this piece, it's all about layering, building up loads of layers of leaves, branches and vines. With big, broad strokes, I'm building a backdrop of this dense, tropical jungle. As I'm painting, I can just imagine the symphony of wildlife, the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of exotic birds. Sometimes I just get properly stuck into the painting, really get into the zone, and I actually picture myself in the scene. I think it helps me add more life and more emotion into the painting. I want this background to really pull you in. I want it to transport you into a world teeming with life and the majesty of the wild. Painting big like this is great because I always feel like I can be a bit looser and be a bit more expressive with the brush strokes when I'm painting on something this scale, which to me that means more paint. And the downside to that is it takes a lot longer for the paint to dry before I can work over the top with glazes and washes and more detail. It's been about 30 minutes since I did this layer. It's mostly dry, so there are places where it is still a little bit wet, but the area that I want to do now for a little bit of glazing and just adjusting some colours is dry enough to do. So let's get cracking with that. As I've already said, painting big like this is just lots of big, bold brushstrokes laid on top of each other. I'm not focusing on details at this stage. I don't really need to. When you take in this picture as a whole, the details aren't that important. What I need to do is step back, see this picture as one big piece, rather than small individual segments. The background is there to wrap around you, wrap around the jaguar. It's not supposed to be there for you to go up and look at all the tiny little details, all the tiny little leaves, perfectly painted leaves. I don't need those to give the viewer a sense of this raw, wild, untamed jungle. I think that is pretty much it for the background now. What I'm going to do next is work on the jaguar, and I'm going to start with a wash of colours. Doing a thin wash of acrylics like this acts like a foundation. It provides me with the building blocks for later on in the painting, so I know pretty much which colours go where without having to look at my reference photo too much. The blocking is obviously just the first part of painting big pictures like this. I'm going to let this dry now, and while this is drying, I'm going to mix up some fresh paints to start working on the details. I'm mixing up quite a lot of paint because I'm actually going to use these colours for all three of the Jaguar commission paintings. And for each of these colours that I mix up, to make them last the probably few months it's going to take me to create these paintings, I've mixed in a little bit of Acrylic Retarder. This has no effect on the paint itself on the canvas, but does stop it from drying out, so I can keep my paint wet on my palette for months. I'm going to be honest with you, I find painting animals with spots some of the hardest animals to paint. I hate doing spots. It takes so much work trying to get them to not look like they've just been painted on at the end or just stuck on top. You really have to make them look like they are part of the fur. And to do that means lots and lots of layers. I've already got the position of the spots blocked in, so my first step is to start to get some of that fur down. And again, I'm not focusing too much on details, I'm just trying to get values and colours in at this stage. I'm trying to paint loosely around the spots, but I'm not too bothered if I paint over them, because this is just, as I said, layer one of many, many layers of fur. Even though this is a relatively big painting, because I'm painting the full body of the jaguar, the gaps between the spots are actually pretty small, which means I do have to put in a little bit of detail with the smaller brushes. Normally, on bigger paintings, you don't need to go into loads and loads of detail with the tiny brushes. Using bigger brush strokes to give the impression of detail is usually enough. Big paintings are usually viewed from further back, and your brain does the work filling in where it thinks the tiny details should be. I've not quite cracked the impression of details thing, at least not in one layer. My process for adding the impression of details is to actually paint all of the details. But then I use loads of washes of thin down paint to adjust the colours and reduce the level of details in some areas. More layers of washes means more opaque paint, which means just hints of those details showing through. It is a long and slow process, and it has taken me a full week of painting to get to this stage. And there's still a long way to go. But now it's time for a well-deserved break away from my easel. If you'd like to see how I planned this painting, then check out this video here. I'll leave a link to it in the description as well. And please do like and subscribe to the channel, it helps so much, and you don't want to miss out on the finished reveal of this painting in my next video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.